Have you ever wondered what it would look like if Webflow and Framer had a baby? It'd probably be a pretty cute baby.
You are so cute, you sweet little web builder. Yes, you are.
If so, then let me introduce you to Ycode. Ycode is a new kid on the block that's bringing both stunning visual design tools as well as extreme functionality. It blends these two together in a really seamless and beautiful way. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through the basics of Ycode, get you up and running to see if it's the right platform for you and your client projects. All right, here we are at Ycode.com. This is where you can sign up and get a free account. And Ycode claims that you can build professional websites easy, fast, and affordable. Let me just fast forward to the end because I feel like all those things are very, very true. We'll talk about the price because it is actually very, very affordable. But it does three things really well. It allows you to take full design control and create really beautiful, responsive sites. It's really, really good at managing content and then hosting and publishing websites really, really quickly. And I know there's a lot of other platforms that do this and claim to do this, but Ycode is a pretty great product, and that's why I would definitely encourage you to sign in and create a free account. And as I've done that, I'm now here on my dashboard. I can invite countless people, limitless, as many as I want to my team to work on any projects, and I can then create new projects, and I have some projects lined up right here that tells me really quickly, you know, what's the page count, the CMS, the collections, the storage. So I like this kind of dashboard view because it gives me all of the details on all of my sites. But let's go ahead and create a new project. When we do that, we have the option of working from templates, some free, some paid, all of them really, really nice, or we can work from a blank canvas. We can actually preview one of these templates. They're all really professional and, again, functional and beautifully made. If you want to grab one of these, it's actually really, really easy to start working from them, edit them, and change them. But for us, why don't we start from scratch a blank template here. We're just going to call this one demo. We're going to continue, and Ycode is going to generate the kind of structure and the foundation of our website. When we enter into our website, we're immediately hit in the overview tab. This is where we can see all the analytics and details about our site. And then down the left-hand side, you can see you have access to the design tab, CMS pages, a file manager, the ability to localize all the content on your website, as well as the website's settings. Let's go over to design, because once we hit the design mode, the first thing it's going to ask you to do is start laying out your website. We can click here and start adding some layouts, some pre-made layouts, or we can go to the elements, and it has everything that you would need. It has sections and containers and columns and rows and grids, and this is where it really stands out and feels like a really good web building experience because it's all going to be very, very in tune with front-end development. If I am going to bring in something like a grid, you can see that I'm working in grid structures here, where I display and lay out and do all that kind of stuff. If I'm going to work in something like columns, you can see that we're working usually in a layout that's doing block, inline block. So again, very, very in tune with front-end development. It's not going to be abstracted like just a design tool. It's going to be very much a front-end development tool, but not hard, not a bad learning curve at all. You can throw in any of those elements like content and actions and media and forms. And they have everything under the sun, a lot of cool integrations and connections like Lemon Squeezy and a bunch of other things. But you can also start grabbing layouts and throwing these predefined layouts in to edit them. And that's probably a great way to start because I might need something like a navigation. I click it, pops it right into my design. Let's add something else here. Let's drop down and find like a nice hero section. We're going to pop that in, and notice we have the ability to delete those sections or move them up and down inside. Let's do a few more sections here, like maybe a content section. Like we could do something like this that has maybe like some value propositions. Let's also throw in something like this. It's going to be more content for us. Then we're going to look for maybe like a blog section. I think that could be kind of nice. Let's do latest posts down there for our blog. And then we're going to be looking for a footer. Let's go all the way down to the bottom. And we have a nice footer that has a newsletter sign up. If we were to preview our site right now, we can do that. And we can preview it on all the different screen sizes, right? So we have access to our all screens and desktops we're looking at right now. We can jump down to something like medium size. That's going to be more of your tablet size, your small size, and we can jump back up. So we can edit, we can view and edit in all of these different sizes, which feels really, really good. Now we want to customize the design, and you do have the ability to customize. Everything is customizable. You can notice those sections kind of building up over here as I open them up. Each of them have a container that has consistent padding in them. And then inside you have the actual content that's, in this case, aligned inside of a grid. I can grab that entire section, and using the contextual or properties panel over on the right-hand side, I can start adding some different styles, right? It could be gradients, they could be images, it could be, noise and texture, but I can absolutely change this up and build it however I want to. Let's say in this case, I wanted the background to be black, and I want all of my text here to be white. Let's grab this one and make this text white as well. Okay, cool. And now we have our buttons here. We're probably going to want to change those because they're not really popping very much. Why don't we make that like a fun purple color? And then I'll come over here and just double click on the image, and that's going to open up my file manager. So it's a little bit different than other platforms. I actually have a file manager where I can grab tons of images and drop all of my images inside there. I can also click right here and get straight to Unsplash if I want to. This looks pretty cool. Why don't I grab something like this really cool image, or maybe, yeah, I liked this one up above. We'll just double click on that and pop it inside. Now, it's important to note that all of your responsive design work will actually run downhill with your all screens or desktops being the primary size. As soon as I move to something like large screen, let's say on this, it's fine. I'll drop down to the medium size screen. I can grab that section, and maybe the padding is a little bit much for my tablet. I could just come in here and I can either drag down, which is pretty nice. I like the control panel that they have over here, to maybe something like 110. And now when I come back, you'll see that it's 140 on my large screens, 110 here. And you can see that it's holding on to that 110 because everything's rushing downhill or moving downhill. Why don't I change this to be something more like 80 and 80, and now we've made those responsive changes, and again, everything rolls downhill. It's very, very easy to understand. We also have interactions and animations, and the way that Ycode does interactions and animations is maybe a little bit more complex than something like Framer, but not quite as complex as something like Webflow. And actually, I really like it. It's a really nice middle ground. I can grab any element, like let's say the image inside of my hero, and I can move up to the interactions panel up here. And this is where we can kind of start setting some of those details. Set the trigger, for instance, on page load. We can do something, right? And we're currently affecting the image, which is nice. Do we want to loop this? No. What kind of properties do we want to add to this interaction or animation? Well, I definitely want to add something like a move. And here's where I really like this, the way that this interaction happens. Do I want to move it horizontally or vertically? Why don't we move it something like vertically? So you can see it's going to start from somewhere like here. It's going to move there. And that's how I kind of view these animations. Start from here, end here, right? The arrow moving from left to right. That's great. Now I can add just like a little bit of a delay, like 0.2 of a delay. The duration can take 1 whole second, and then we can change our easing and timing however we want. So that's pretty cool. And then let's add another property here. We'll do something like opacity. And again, we're going to go from 0 opacity like that to 100% opacity. And let's make that delay the same thing, 0.2, and it'll last 1 second. Ease in, ease out. Let's press play, and you can see the interaction or the animation taking place. We can also add some other cool stuff. Like for instance, we have this section right here. Why don't we do something in this case, like we'll actually go back and we'll add a new scroll into view animation here. When the top of my section scrolls into view, I want it to do it once and not reset. I want it on all breakpoints. And again, we want movement. So why don't we do something like just moving from, let's do something like 20 pixels. And again, we can kind of move that up to maybe even something more like 60 pixels. So it's going to start here. It's going to move into place. Great. And then why don't we add this as well? We'll do same thing. Opacity from 0 to 100. Fantastic. Okay. So with that being said, I go back to design, press play. You get your animation there. As we scroll down, we got to wait. We get more of that in. And just got to get that section in view the right way. Okay, so again, super easy, super powerful. You can create really powerful interactions here. Let's take a look next at something like the CMS, because we do have a nice CMS here and there's no collections currently. So why don't we add a couple of sample collections? They have created some for us. We're going to create all of these. So like for instance, a blog post. We'll do people. That could probably represent like different authors. And then we have something like categories. And if I go into blog posts, you can see we have all sorts of fields here for our blog posts. I can open up one of these rows, and it's a really easy editing experience. The name, the description, all of this kind of stuff, the content, which is rich text. And there's tons more fields. If I want to add a field inside, I just click up here on the right-hand side. I can name it. And then look, we have everything from text areas, true, false, links, emails, image uploads, videos, YouTube, and then you also have reference. So let's add a reference here, and let's call this the author and select which collection we want. Like that's people, create that field. And let's add another one here, and we will call this one categories, right? Categories like that, and it's going to be also a reference, and we're going to select that categories, create that field. Now we can click into each one of these, scroll down to the bottom, and we can select that reference that we've added here. So let's add a author and a category to a couple of our posts here. Let's scroll down to where our blog posts should be, and we're going to take a look at this because we have a bunch of different elements inside here. Inside of our grid, we have 4 columns, and we actually only need one of those columns. So we're going to delete those because this is where our blog posts are actually going to show up. So I'm actually going to select the grid here, and we're going to come up to the right-hand side and just say, hey, grab a collection here to bind the data and make it pull from the blog post. Now you'll notice here that it's not pushing everything into the actual blog post because we selected the wrong one. And I did that on purpose to show you it does actually matter inside of Ycode how you work, right? It's going to do exactly what you tell it to, which is actually kind of nice. So let's grab the columns this time and actually hit collections, blog posts. It's going to honor that 2-column grid that we have working, and now inside it has our blog post section, and it's pulling 5 posts because that's how many blog posts we actually have, but it hasn't like really bound any of the data there. Well, how do we do that? Really easy. We click on something like the image that's inside of one of our elements, make sure we're over here on the settings panel, and then we can just drill down and say, hey, give me the image directly from the blog post. When I click that, it's going to fill in everything dynamically. So now we can do that with things like our date. Let's delete this static date that we have here and hit the created date. Same thing here. We're going to delete these, and then we're going to add in, I think that's supposed to be like the name of the post. Great. And you can also click these, for instance, and add the description. And notice how it can, if you want it to, concatenate things, but we actually want to get those out of there. We don't want those in there. And let's actually get rid of this button. We don't need it. Let's come back up to our date, and let's actually figure out how we want to format that date. That's a little bit official. Let's do something that's a little bit more on the casual side. So formatting looks really nice. And then once we set up actual pages for the blogs, which is really easy to do, we would then have a slug for each of those created blog pages, and we could link out each one of these rows to click on. Also, Ycode has the ability to do extended functionality without any sort of third-party tools. Like I can actually filter all of these without using any other outside source. So let me come into the block here that we have with our title and our subheadline, and I'm going to go into my elements here, and I'm going to find something like a filter, and I just add that in, and it has put in a input field and a button. That might be the type of filter that you want, but I'm thinking something a little bit easier. Let's open that back up. Let's do something like a selector, right? It's popped that in over there. That's fine. And let's get rid of our button and our input. So now we have a filter. Let's just take our block really quickly, go back to design mode, sizing, and just set that to be full. That's pretty nice. And we don't need this label up above at all. But let's grab this filter that this interface element is working inside of. And let's say I want it to filter on the value change. So it feels really, really dynamic. I don't want to have to like click the input field and search and refresh. I want it all to refresh right here inside of the page. That'll be pretty nice, right? So I'm going to come down to the select now, and I'm going to figure out where it's going to pull these options from. Well, we want it to pull from, let's say, category or author. Let's do category. That's pretty simple. And so now you can see it drops a starting category in there. How do we want to sort it? Do we want placeholder text? Absolutely. Multiple selection required, autofocus, all of that stuff is good. And so that feels pretty good. Now what we want to do is we're going to come to our actual blog blog posts here because we need to connect the logic between the two. Let's make sure that we're grabbing our actual blog posts and make sure that we're in settings here. And let's drop down and we're going to get a filter. Let's add a new filter and we're going to say, hey, we want to filter the blog posts and we want to say filter it if it is one of, and we'll link it to the filter field. We'll just drag it up almost like Figma. We'll noodle it up there, drop it on and add that filter, refresh. And in this case, you do have to publish it for this level of functionality to work. You won't be able to see it in the previewer. So let's open up that newly published live site. We got our on-page load animation. We have our on-scroll animation. And as we scroll down, we get to our latest posts. We can actually grab these and move down to lifestyle. And you can see it is actually filtering things out, which is really, really cool. Let's do something like art and culture. Pop those around, only grabbing the elements that are tied to those categories, filtering with no third-party tools. If you thought that that was easy, normal forms are even easier. We can go back to our site and scroll down to where we have this section. Why don't we add a new layout inside, kind of a contact form situation happening, maybe something like this one. Pop that in and we might just move that up so it's on top of the footer. When I click on this element, which is a form element, you can see over here in my layers panel, I actually have this really simple interface over here on the top right. It just says who it is going to be received, or who the recipient's going to be, the subject and the message. And you can also on success, you can do a message or you can do a redirect. You can do conditional visibility for all of these. So forms are super easy. And once you have something set that you really like inside of your website, you can turn things into components. So you can turn them into reusable blocks. And this is actually going to be really powerful because next we're going to talk about content editing. So I can actually come to something like my blog section here. This might be something that I reuse throughout. And so I'm just going to right click on the section here, create a component, and let's call this the blog. And what's another good section? We might do like obviously our hero section up here, and right click on it and create component just like that. And let's say we had spent some time working on this section, like value props, and then we would want to turn that into a component. So we can do that, and then each of these you can now double click on them and you can find yourself in component editing mode. Now what's really cool here is that we can actually add further functionality for content editing. And before we do that, let's talk about content editing, because that's something that is super powerful inside of Ycode. Throughout your website, you can actually, at any time, you're setting all of this up to make it a simple editing experience. Not everyone's a designer or a no-code front-end developer. They don't need to have access to everything here. What if your client or somebody comes in and they accidentally grab a section like this and they start dragging things around or messing things up in the layer panel? We don't want that. So we can actually flip over to editor mode. We can invite people to the project as content editors, and they can actually click on things. Like for instance, if they were a non-component, they can actually double click on things and bring up Unsplash or, you know, any other section, and they can start to edit the content. Double click, I get everything else grayed out, you know, on X box or whatever, like something like that, and you can escape, and now we're editing content without messing anything up. What's even greater is that as a designer, if we set up components, double click into that component, we can actually set up component variables and even further lock down the design and make it a simpler process. So for instance, we can come into something like our hero here and select the actual headline. Let's head over to settings, and you can see right here we have the element with the content. Why don't we create a new variable like this, and we'll call this something like headline, and it has a default and a placeholder. Fantastic. And while we're here, we know that our image could be updated and our subcopy could be updated. So let's create a new one. Actually, I'll delete this one. I'll create something like a paragraph. We'll call this body copy. And let's do one more, and this could be an image. We could do the hero image like this, and we could choose an image. Let's select that as our default, and awesome, fantastic, just like that. And we can come out of here, select our element, and guess what? We can go set that variable of hero image, and we can grab this and we can set that variable of body copy. Now when our users come in here, our clients or content editors come in here, this is the experience they'll see. They'll click on the entire component and they have this nice, simple head like setup that's happening over here where they can put something in the headline. They can actually add their copy here and see it updated. They can go in and they can change the imagery. And just like that, we have reusable elements that have an insane level of control for content editors. Also, content editors can build new pages. If they came over here and said, let's build a regular page, like an about page like this, they can actually come into the sections that have been created, like our, for instance, navigation. They just pop that in there. They can add something like that hero that goes right underneath. They could add, again, our blog listings. Now they're building pages using accepted and pre-approved components and elements. And when they click on those, they have a really easy editing experience, right? You can't edit the nav, you can't edit the hero. Come down here to the blog, they can actually see the blog list, add a new blog post just like that. So the content editing experience here is super easy, super great for us as designers to lock down design and allow content to flow more freely. If all of this wasn't enough, there's a lot of other great features inside of Ycode. I can come over here back to the designer. You can do localization of languages, and you can jump over here to all of the different settings. This is where we can do things like control over our project name, favicon, our domains, the redirects, any API tokens, and they do have very affordable plans. So you can see here on a free plan, you get 3 pages, 10 CMS collections, 50 items, and a gig of bandwidth. But for just a couple more bucks a month, you get really, really good like features here and lots of CMS items, unlimited pages. And again, members and content editors and people that you invite in your team to these projects, unlimited. So there's no real workspace kind of plan. It's all just happening in the context of the site license for the hosting of the actual site. So very, very easy pricing and planning and a great design and content experience, in my opinion. And that's it. That's everything that you need to know to get up and running with this amazing web building tool called Ycode. What do you think about it? Are you going to use Ycode for one of your up and coming client projects or personal portfolio project? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, check the description for a bunch of helpful links and make sure that you leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'm always making content on tools, techniques, and platforms like this that have either helped me or I think would help you. So definitely ring that bell so you know when new content comes out. I hope you're having an amazing week. I hope you're designing amazing things, making amazing things. We'll see you in the next one.